Welcome to Grace Mitchell's Stories, where every tale reminds us of the power of truth, kindness, and love. Today's story is about a humble waitress cornered by cruelty, and the unexpected allies who stood by her when she needed it most. The evening sky in the small town of Willow Creek glowed orange and gold as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across Main Street. The town was quiet, except for the hum of engines in the distance, a low thunder rolling in like a storm. At the heart of this quiet community stood the Bluebird Diner, a modest roadside cafe with neon lights that flickered in the night. It wasn't fancy, but it was a place where locals gathered, truckers rested, and strangers could find a warm meal and a kind smile. Inside the diner, 27-year-old Clara Hayes worked tirelessly behind the counter. Clara wasn't the kind of woman who demanded attention. Petite, with sandy brown hair pulled into a messy bun and soft hazel eyes, she carried herself with quiet dignity. Life had not been easy on her. Orphaned at 16, she had raised her younger brother, Luke, while juggling school and part-time jobs. Now, years later, Luke was away at college, his tuition funded by Clara's endless hours of waitressing, double shifts, and sacrifices that left her with little but exhaustion. The Bluebird Diner was her safe haven. She had been working there for 5 years, and though the pay was small, the owner, old Mr. Donovan, treated her kindly, almost like family. Customers came not just for the food, but for Clara's warmth, the way she remembered names, how she slipped free refills to tired truckers, how she offered a kind word to those who had none. But safety is fragile, and one night it shattered. The bell above the diner's door jingled sharply, and in swaggered a group of 3 men. They weren't locals. Clara could tell instantly. Rough-looking, leather jackets scuffed with dirt, faces twisted with arrogance, eyes that searched for trouble. They carried themselves with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing people are too afraid to fight back. The leader, tall and broad with a scar across his cheek, leaned on the counter with a smirk. "Evening, sweetheart," he drawled. "How about you get us some coffee? Black and quick." Clara forced a polite smile. Of course, but the moment she turned, the men began making crude remarks, their voices loud, filling the quiet diner. A few regulars glanced nervously their way, then quickly looked back at their plates. No one wanted trouble. Clara returned with the coffees, setting them gently on the counter. "That'll be the leader," cut her off, shoving the mug back toward her, spilling hot liquid across the counter. "This is cold. You call this coffee?" he barked. Clara flinched, but kept her composure. "I'm so sorry, sir. I'll make a fresh pot." But the man sneered. "Nah. What I think is, this dump doesn't need a waitress who doesn't know how to serve." He leaned closer, his breath foul. "Why don't you do us all a favor and quit? You don't belong here." The other 2 laughed cruelly, pounding the counter with their fists. The sound echoed like gunfire in the small diner. Clara's chest tightened, but she stood her ground. "Sir, please, I'm just trying to do my job." The scarred man's grin widened. "Then do it better." He reached across the counter suddenly, grabbing her wrist. Clara gasped, struggling to pull away, fear flashing in her eyes. The diner went silent. No one moved, not until the rumble began. It started faint. A vibration in the floorboards, then grew louder, the unmistakable growl of motorcycle engines approaching. The sound grew into a chorus, a storm rolling down Main Street. The thugs froze, their heads turning toward the windows. Outside, headlights pierced the darkness as a dozen motorcycles pulled into the diner's parking lot, engines roaring like lions announcing their arrival. The door burst open, and in walked the Iron Serpents, a biker club known throughout Willow Creek. They were rough men, leather-clad, their jackets marked with coiled serpent insignia. The leader, Jackson Reed, towered at the front. He was in his early 40s, with long dark hair tied back, a beard streaked with gray, and eyes as sharp as steel. Clara had served them countless times before. Despite their intimidating appearance, the Serpents had always been respectful toward her, even protective. They were men who lived hard lives but carried a code of loyalty and honor. The thugs immediately released Clara, their bravado faltering as Jackson's gaze fell on them. The room seemed to shrink under his presence. "You boys causing trouble here?" Jackson's voice was low, steady, but it carried the weight of thunder. The scarred man sneered, trying to recover his confidence. "What's it to you? We're just having a little fun." Jackson stepped closer, his boots heavy on the diner floor. "Fun's over." The thugs exchanged nervous glances, but the leader puffed out his chest. "We don't take orders from bikers." In an instant, Jackson slammed his hand down on the counter so hard the mugs rattled. "You do now?" The room went silent. The thugs shifted uncomfortably, their earlier arrogance slipping. Behind Jackson, the other bikers spread out, filling the diner with an unspoken threat. They didn't need to raise their voices. Their presence alone was enough. Clara, her heart still pounding, stepped back, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and relief. The scarred man tried to laugh it off. We were just joking with the waitress. No harm done. Jackson's eyes narrowed. Grabbing a woman isn't a joke. His voice dropped lower, more dangerous. You lay a hand on her again, and you'll answer to us. The thugs muttered excuses, hastily tossing a few bills on the counter. We'll be on our way. Jackson didn't move. His eyes locked on them until they slinked out of the diner, tails tucked, disappearing into the night. When the door shut, silence lingered. Then, slowly, the tension eased. The bikers relaxed, taking seats at the booths as if nothing unusual had happened. Clara stood frozen, her breath uneven, her wrist still trembling where the thug had grabbed her. Jackson turned to her, his voice softening. You okay, darlin'? Her lips trembled. Why, yes, thank you. He gave a small nod. No one disrespects family. And you, he glanced around the diner. You've always treated us like family. Tears welled in Clara's eyes. For years she had carried burdens silently, feeling invisible to the world. And now, in this moment, she realized she wasn't alone. As the bikers settled in, Clara wiped her eyes quickly and moved behind the counter. I'll get your coffees. Jackson smiled faintly. Make it strong. Been a long ride. The night carried on, the diner filling with laughter and the clatter of cups as the bikers made themselves at home. For Clara, the fear faded, replaced by a warmth she hadn't felt in years, a sense of belonging, of being seen, of being protected. But that night was just the beginning. News of the incident spread quickly through Willow Creek. People spoke in hushed tones about how the waitress had been cornered and how the bikers had come to her defense. Some frowned, dismissing bikers as outlaws, but others saw the truth. They had stood for justice. When no one else dared, Clara became something of a symbol in the town, not just the quiet waitress at the Bluebird, but the woman who had found protectors in the most unexpected of places. And Nicholas Herring, the very millionaire who often visited Willow Creek from Chicago, happened to hear the story. The next week, when he visited the diner, he asked Clara what had happened. She recounted the events quietly, her eyes cast down. But Nicholas noticed the bikers at their usual booth, watching her like hawks. When she finished, Nicholas said softly, You know, Clara, sometimes the strongest family isn't the one you're born into. It's the one that shows up when you need it most. Clara smiled faintly, her heart swelling with gratitude. For so long, she had felt like her battles were hers to fight alone. Now she understood kindness, respect, and loyalty had earned her something rare. The bikers had arrived when no one else would, and their response had stunned everyone. Not because they were feared, but because in that moment, they proved that true strength lies in standing up for what's right. And Clara, the humble waitress who once felt invisible, finally realized that she mattered. Because sometimes family doesn't come from blood. Sometimes it comes from those who ride in on the sound of thunder when the world turns against you. So remember this. Courage isn't always loud, and heroes don't always wear suits. Sometimes they wear leather jackets and ride motorcycles. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Grace Mitchell Stories, where every week we share powerful tales of kindness, love, and hope that remind us of what truly matters in life.